Hi,
Good
everyone.
evening.
Welcome, everyone, to NephCure's first annual APOL1 Awareness Live webinar. I'm so excited for you all to join, and we're so grateful that you all have spent your night with us tonight and have been so willing to join and spread awareness about something very important. I'll do a quick overview about APOL1, but we're going to rely on the geniuses, Dr. Olabisi, to get into more detail about basically what this gene is, why it's important that we know and how it affects the Black community. So, the APOL1 gene has gained significant attention in recent years due to association with various kidney diseases, particularly in populations of African ancestry. Tonight is important because it serves as a night to spread awareness, to educate healthcare professionals, researchers, and the general public about the gene's significance, its role in kidney health, and the implications for clinical practice and public health. So tonight I'll have the great help of Dr. Olabisi. Dr. Avi, please make sure I say your name correctly before I continue on, as well as a patient who is a dear friend of NephCure, Jordan Albright, who's also affected by the APOL1 kidney disease. So Dr. Avi,
Sure, it's Abby.
Abby, thank you. Look at me
No
overdoing
worries.
it. Thanks for bearing with me. And so tonight we'll be using their great minds to discuss this, one from a personal view from Jordan Albright, as well as from a clinical and professional and expert view of Dr. Olabisi and Dr. Abby, who is representing Vertex Pharmaceutical, who is our amazing sponsor for tonight. We're so grateful for you, Dr. Abby, as well as Vertex, for making this possible and pairing with us to do this. So thank you so much. So Dr. Olabisi, I'll start by introducing you.
Okay.
And so Dr. Labisi is a physician scientist and assistant professor of medicine at Duke School of Medicine. He practices adult nephrology and conducts NIH-funded research that leverages experimental models and patient-derived cells to study the mechanisms underlying APOL1-mediated kidney disease. He is a recipient of several awards, including NIH Director's New Innovator Award, Whitehead Scholar, and Albert Einstein College of Medicine Alumni Rising Star Investigator Award. Dr. Labisa received a bachelor's degree from the City College of New York, MD PhD degree from Albert Einstein College of Medicine, internal medicine residency at MGH, and nephrology fellowship with postdoctoral research fellowship at Harvard Medical School. Oof, you've been working. So, welcome the amazing Dr. Olabisi, who is a dear friend of NephCure, who Karen Justice, that he also runs, has been a great partner of ours in all of our efforts to not only have an impact with health equity, but also, of course, and most importantly, spread awareness about the APOL1 gene. Dr. Olabisi, the floor is all yours.
Well, thank you very much, Montrez. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we hear you great.
Excellent. And thank you for that glowing introduction. It will make my mother very proud.
Well, you did it all, no help of mine.
So thank you for having me, and thank you to NephCure. I think part of my excitement about joining this program today, which is the first April 1 Awareness Day. Woohoo! Uh, Part of this is that NephCare is not just an organization, in my view, that talk the talk, but walks the walk. Really empower many of us in the field to engage patients. And so when NephCare calls, we show up. So thank you for
And we're
having us.
grateful for it, Dr. Olabisi. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I will share my screen. Once you enable me to, currently I'm disabled from sharing. Okay, now I think I
Yeah,
have. So can you see my screen?
we can.
All right. So now I can't see people on the other side of the of the screen. Zoom has very many wonderful attributes. It brings the world, it collapses the world into small area, but the price for that is we can't really touch and see each other. So, but we'll try and make do with that. I can see my friend Jordan Albright. Jordan, how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man. It's nice to see you. Nice to hear your voice. It's been a while. Hoping to see you soon.
I know. And I was with Joshua and your mom, Jamie, in Ghana, who,
Yeah,
really
I heard.
forcefully increasing awareness on the African
Mm,
continent. So it was wonderful to see. All right. So my
for sure.
task today is to do the following. Since we're here about APOL1 awareness, I want to sort of cover 4 points, not more than that, 4 points, and then I'll pass it over to Montrez. So I hope at the end of today's session, I will have sort of impressed upon you the high burden of kidney disease in the Black community, the lack of awareness about that kidney disease, not just outside, but even among people that have the kidney disease. The lack of awareness about the role of this gene, APOL1, that we've heard so much about in contributing to the kidney disease in the Black community. And lastly, the underrepresentation of Black Americans, African Americans, and self-identified Blacks, be it from the Caribbean, be it from Harlem, be it from Nigeria, be it from Ghana, in clinical trials, and why we hopefully need to change that in order to begin to bend the arc of this disease towards justice. So, to begin the first point, the burden of kidney disease. This is one of my favorite books by Isabel Wilkerson. I know many of you might have read it. Isabel Wilkerson is a Pulitzer Prize winning writer. Used to write for the New York Times, but excellent, excellent, excellent. She told a very impressive story that many people are not aware of, even myself, until I read her book, that between 1915 and 1970, we have one of the greatest migration of human beings on this planet within a country. And that's the migration of Black people from the southern part of the United States to the northern part, to the Midwest, and to the West. Between 1915 and 1970, 6 million Black people moved from the South to this area. And as the title of the book said, they were searching for the warmth of of other suns, basically looking for better life. Um, and she used the life of 3 individuals to tell the story of this migration. She used the life of Ida Mae Brandon Gladney that moved from Chickasaw County in Mississippi to Chicago, the story of Judge Swanson Sterling that moved from Florida to New York City to Harlem, actually, more specifically, and Dr. Robert Joseph Pershing Forster, who's a physician trained in the military, but really couldn't practice in Louisiana. He was not allowed to practice as a surgeon. And so he moved to California. And as just a tangent of history, in California, he became the personal physician of the late, great Ray Charles. So now, why am I telling you this story? We're here to talk about kidney disease, but here's the point. Of these 3 individuals that Isabella Wilkerson used to tell the story, 2 of the 3 of them died with kidney disease. What are the odds? So the point is, even when you look at the regular history of Black folks in the United States, just telling the story of migration, even there you see kidney disease. So the burden of kidney disease has been there from the beginning. And it's not just an ancient history. It's also a recent, in fact, ongoing story, sadly so. This is the data from United States Renal Data System. We collect all information about people that have kidney disease that develop dialysis in the United States. If you look on the left side of the graph, it represents US population. You see that Black people represent about 13% of US population. But on the right side is a population of people on dialysis with end-stage kidney disease. Upward of 35% of people with end-stage kidney disease are Black. So 35% of dialysis, but 13% of people with end-stage kidney disease. So you see that Black people are overrepresented among people with, and when we say end-stage kidney disease, I will explain what that means in a moment. But pretty much is the last stop on that train of kidney disease. Now, white people have kidney disease too, But if you look in the general US population, whites represent 62% of the population, and a similar level or similar proportion of people with end-stage kidney disease. So it's the overrepresentation of Blacks that I'm pointing out here. So when I say kidney disease is a slow, gradual process. In some cases, it's actually fast. But growing up in New York, I think a lot in train. My train is a number 6 train. So imagine this is a train that have 5 stops. Now, once you're on that train, the terminus of that train is the last stop on the train. So kidney disease has five stops. The first stop is the least severe. The last stop number 5, is dialysis, right? So if you look, as this train gets started, get to station 1, and you look at who is on this train, let's assume there are 10 people on this train. 2 of the 10 people, or 1.5, I should say, of the 10 people on the train will be self-identified Black or African American. That's about 13% of people on the train. Now, this is similar to the proportion of number of people in the US that are Black. The point being that in the early form of kidney disease, Blacks are actually not overrepresented, but you see what happened at station 5. Now, I should explain what I have here as EGFR. EGFR is a fancy word that we kidney doctor use to describe kidney function. So it stands for estimated glomerular filtration rate. What it means is, imagine that if the cup is full, that number is 100. But now this cup is not so full, it's 90. But it's not empty, it's far from empty. So the kidney function at the station 1 is just reduced a little bit. And then this train gets going. Get to station 2, keeps going. Station 3 keeps going. Get to station 4, and ultimately it arrives at the terminus, station 5. Remember at station 1, how many proportion of people that are on the train that are Black? Here, 3.5 people on the train, it will be around 35% of the people on the train will be Black. Now, what does that mean? Black folks have kidney disease that tend to progress more rapidly to dialysis. That's what it means. And you see here, the proportion that we started off with was around 100. I say station 1 is 90. Here, what is left in that cup is less than 15%. So, and when this happens, the person will require dialysis. So this is the overrepresentation, the burden of kidney disease we are describing. And this is not a new issue. As I showed you from history, you even see it there all along. And why is kidney disease important? Now, if you have access to typing in the chat box, you can, I would challenge people to engage at this point. Now, I don't want you to say the names of people, but I want you to say the relatives. So if you have a friend, a cousin, an aunt, a parent that had kidney disease, just write that relationship there. Not the name, but the relationship. Because the burden of kidney disease is so common that among us here on this forum, a lot of us either have the kidney disease or know somebody that had kidney disease. That's how common this disease is in our community. Now, why does this problem matter? The end-stage kidney disease. I already mentioned that it's an unequal opportunity offender. 35% of people on dialysis or with end-stage kidney disease are Black. But not only that, it's very deadly. Every 3 years, about half of the people on dialysis pass on. It's a very deadly disease. And it's also very costly. The cost of dialysis care or end-stage care is more than $40 billion. So it's a costly disease, it's an unequal opportunity offender, and it's very deadly. Now, that is not to account for all the other costs that goes with it. On the issue of death and loss of life, if you look at the loss of life from kidney failure, end-stage kidney failure, for Black men, the Black man's life lost to kidney disease or kidney failure is similar to life lost to colon cancer. For Black women, it's similar to life lost to breast cancer, right? So it's really a major drain in our community. Hopefully I've made that point. That's the first point about burden of kidney disease. What about the second point? As severe as end-stage kidney disease is, most people that have the early form of kidney disease, their train is not yet at station 5. Maybe their train is at station 2 or station 3. They don't feel it. They don't know it. They don't even know they're on the train. That's the point I'm trying to make. Of the 10 people here with kidney disease in this picture, 8 of them don't know they have kidney disease. In fact, in some cases, 9 of them may not know they have kidney disease. That's because kidney disease is often silent, it's often painless, until that train is gone between station 4 to station 5. What causes kidney disease? Kidney disease has multiple causes. So I will try to impress on you that it's not just one thing. Today we are talking about APOL1, but there are multiple factors that contribute to kidney disease. The effect of structural racism, I think, is well recognized. The socioeconomic factor contributes significantly. Basically, where we live, access to resources, access to care, right? Poverty, all those contribute to burden of kidney disease. The environment, there's a study that shows that pollution, people that live in a more highly polluted environment, there's an increased risk of kidney disease in that environment. But having said all this, biology also contributes. The genes we inherit from our forebears contribute. So if somebody tells you it's one thing that causes kidney disease, tell them that that's not true, multiple things. However, if we identify something that we can treat, we can address, we'll do well to do so. So APOL1 fall in this 4th category, in the gene that is common among Black folks. And let me tell you the story of that gene. So that gene name is APOL1. It stands for apolipoprotein 1. In fact, all humans have APOL1. You can think of that APOL1 as version 1.0. But we believe around 5,000 years ago, 2 new versions of APOL1 emerged in West Africa, in today's Ghana, Nigeria, Cameroon area, which is actually the ancestral home of many African Americans today, and also of many Caribbean Americans as well. That variant, those 2 variants, we call them G1 and G2. We believe that they were selected for by nature because they protected West Africans from the African sleeping sickness. So people that have either a G1 or G2, they have survival benefit. And so because they get to live and pass on their gene to their children, that gene spread very quickly. Now, 400 years ago, slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade in the Middle Passage, brought the gene to the Americas, to the Caribbean, and also to South America, Argentina, Brazil. So not just here, all the tracks of slavery, this gene followed Blacks from West Africa to those places, and especially in the United States. Is this gene present in white folks that went to Europe? Not really, because the migration out of Africa occurred about 20 to 100,000 years ago, long before the new variant of APOL1s emerged in West Africa. So I would say people, white folks and Middle Easterns and Asian folks escaped that. So if you might say, well, do I have it? Well, if your ancestors were from Africa in the last 400 years, we'll consider you to be of recent African ancestry. You can be from the Caribbean, you can be from Harlem, you can be from North Carolina, you can be from Ghana or Nigeria, or you might even be from Brazil or Argentina. Remember, slavery took as many Black folks there as it did to the Americas. So this gene is actually not a gene of color or race, it's a gene of West African ancestry. It turns out that most people that will have it will consider themselves Black, but outside of the United States, it's possible to have this gene and not know that you are Black. Some people even say, do not identify as Black, but their ancestry is from West Africa. So it's a gene of West African origin. All right. What kind of kidney disease does this cause? Here, I listed a couple of common kidney diseases that are very strongly associated with APOL1. And again, remember, I think in train, being a Bronx boy myself, I said, let's do perform a thought experiment. Imagine there's this train station, And there are two groups of people at the train station. People that have the regular APOL1, which is G0, let's call that normal APOL1, and people that have the West African version of APOL1, the G1 or G2. Who gets on the train that's going on dialysis? The names here are the names of common diseases that are very common in Black folks. FSGS, it turns out that about 70% of Black folks with FSGS carry the APOL1 gene. About 40% of Blacks with high blood pressure associated kidney disease or high blood pressure attributed kidney disease. We tend to say that their kidney disease was caused by high blood pressure, but evidence now suggests that it's probably not the high blood pressure, it's APOL1 that's driving this. When COVID happened, a new form of kidney disease came with it. And about 90% of people that have it are people that have the high risk APOL1. The same is true for HIV. So the first impact of having this gene is it gets you on the train that's going to dialysis. The second impact of this gene, the high risk APOL1, is that once you're on that train, it turns that train to a bullet train, to an express train. The train at the top is just a regular kidney disease in a person without APOL1. The train at the bottom that says APOL1 CKD is a person that have CKD or kidney disease due to the APOL1. Let's see who gets dialysis first. In fact, people that have the APOL1 related kidney disease get to dialysis about 7 to 10 years early. This is part of the reason why kidney disease in the Black community is around, it tends to happen a lot in the younger folks. Not all, doesn't explain everyone, but it's so much in the case. I can hear question already in the audience thinking, is this only in African Americans or do we see this in West Africa? Well, as Montrez just said, I just came from Ghana. The burden of this kidney disease is probably higher in West Africa, in Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, Benin area, because there's even more people there with the kidney disease from this APOL1. And the age of onset of kidney disease is even younger, almost 20 years younger among the population there than here. So it's not just the impact of this gene, it's not just in the United States, but we see the impact of it in West Africa as well. To my fourth point, which is my last point. Now, all the things I've said, you would imagine that we Blacks supposed to be the most studied people in clinical trial because we are at high risk for kidney disease. All studies should really include a lot of Black folks. Not so. If you look at clinical trials that is looking for cure, Blacks represent less than 5% of those people, including kidney disease. So we represent more than 30% of people on dialysis, but less than 5% of people in clinical trial. And that is a problem. That's a problem. Now, this problem has multiple causes. Biomedical research in the United States has not always been favorable to Black folks. Everybody knows the history of areata lax. Everybody know the syphilis, the Tuskegee trial, and so. But even beyond that, oftentimes studies do not ask Black people to participate. So, and also there's not really a lot of trust between Black folks and biomedical researcher. Now, those are some of the problems, but we won't let that problem stop us, right? Because if this kidney disease is driving people to stage 5 of dialysis or station 5, and people are getting on dialysis, and as I told you, once people are on dialysis, it's not a walk in the park. Half of the people on dialysis die every 3 years or so, 3 to 5 years. So we need to find a way to slow down the train. And the way we know in the Western world to slow the train down is to do clinical trial. And to do clinical trial, we have to engage the community that is involved. That is our community. So you may be thinking, what can I do in here? Well, I would say, do you know your kidney number? Do you know whether you have APOL1, right? There's opportunity to do screening for APOL1 through studies. Now, this test is not formally present yet in many, if you go to your primary care doctor, he may not even know what you're talking about. You can refer him to this informational session, and I hope Montrez might say a bit more about this. But I know Vertex is doing study that is doing clinical trial. So that we have a Vertex representative here that will speak to that. Our group at Duke, we're also doing clinical trial that is focused on basically slowing this disease. And we also offer free genetic testing, I believe, as Vertex does. So there are opportunities to participate in clinical studies where you have opportunity to get your genetic testing in a respectful way, in a culturally sensitive way, where your information will not be mismanaged, because we recognize the history of how, in some cases in the past, this research has not been done well in the past in the Black community, and we are all determined to do it correctly this time. So let me pause there, and if there are questions, we'll be happy to take them. But APOL1 kidney disease is really is a blight on our community. And we believe that with concerted effort that will require partnership between the people in academia, people in patient advocacy like NephCure, people in research like myself, but ultimately working with people in the community, I believe we can turn the tide on this. But it starts with people participating in trial. It starts with people knowing their APOL1 genotype, and there are opportunities and avenues for doing that. Thank you for listening.
That was amazing, Dr. Olabisi. Thank you so much. You explained it so well and very inspiring. So thank you so much. We're so grateful and so lucky to have you. I do have a few questions for you, of course, which is amazing. One is, what is African sleeping disease?
African sleeping sickness. So the African sleeping sickness is caused by a parasite called TB with a trypanosome brucei rhodesiense. Now, fancy word to say that this is, let me put it differently. So there are several diseases that are carried by mosquitoes. Malaria is carried by mosquito. But sleeping sickness parasite is carried by tsetse fly. So tsetse fly is almost like a mosquito. If it bites you, it passes this parasite into your bloodstream. And this parasite infects the body, but also can go to the brain. If it goes to the brain, it ultimately causes symptoms of sleepiness, but it's not just sleepiness. Over time, like in months, 6 months or so, the person can die from it. So that's why they call it sleeping sickness, because when you're infected with this parasite, eventually it causes people to, to have, because it infects their brain, cause sleeping sickness, and it ultimately can kill. So you can see why this would be a problem for humans. And so this gene APOL1 originally, as we believe, helped to reduce the risk of this sleeping sickness. But there's no free lunch. It looks like what nature gave with one hand, it took away with both hands. So hopefully I clarify the sleeping sickness question there.
No, that was great. Also, someone of course asked, is there a test for APOL1 that we can request to find out our individual genetic risk factor?
Yes, yes, and yes, and yes. So there are a couple of avenues to do the genetic testing. Some of you guys, if you have done your 23andMe actually includes report on the APOL1. Though I'm not advocating that, I'm not saying you should go to 23andMe. Our group at Duke have an NIH-funded research. If you go to careandjustice.com, we have a self-screening screening question there. If you're eligible, basically of a certain age, and so you answer a few questions, and we'll send you saliva kit. Vertex is conducting a therapeutic test across the country. And as part of that test, you also get screened for APOL1 genetic testing. So thanks, Montrez, for putting the Care and Justice.
Of course.
So
and I'll also put my contact information in as well. For NephCure, I'm the Associate Director of Patient Navigation, and we also help with a great deal of connecting patients with genetic testing as well as other resources. So if anything you hear tonight, you're interested in follow-up for, please feel free to reach out to me. I can connect, and I can always bug Dr. Olabisi for more information and more resources. as well as reach out to any parties. NephCure has a great wraparound program that really helps patients completely. Also, our director of marketing also just posted a link that helps you get genetic testing via our NephCure website, as well as I'll also correct that, Karen Justice. One quick question too, Dr. Olabisi. You're popular as always. I saw a question that says, do we know the mutation that is found in West Africans and their descendants?
Do we know the mutation in West African descendants? Yes. And that's the version I call the G1 and the G2. So the version that is common in all human is called G0. G0 is the first one. But the newer version, G1 and G2, that's in West Africa, is called G1, and the second one is G2. And the way this works is that every human being have two copies of APOL1. You got one from father and you got one from mother. So somebody may get a G1 from father and a G0 from mother. Now we call that a G0, G1. Or you may get a G1 and a G1. That means you have a G1, G1, and so on and so forth. But the version that causes kidney disease is when you have a G1, G1, meaning that you got one from father and one from mother, or a G2, G2, or a G1, G2. So you need two copies of these two APOL1, G1 or G2. Those two copies can increase the risk of kidney disease. Now, I must say that if you have this variant, this G1, G2, it does not mean, if you don't currently have kidney disease, it does not mean you will have kidney disease. I need to clarify this part. So, so unlike sickle cell, for example, sickle cell, if you have a SS, most people with SS will have sickle cell disease. Not so with APOL1. Only 1 in 5 people that have these two develop kidney disease. So this is not something that you get this result and you begin to be depressed. No. In fact, and now we also have tests for therapy. So I think I see hope, a lot more hope on the horizon. But people need to know their APOL1 genetic test, genotype first, in order to even know that whether they're at risk or not. So only 1 in 5 people that have two APOL1, the two West African APOL1, develop kidney disease. The other 4 in 5, thankfully, from where we stand today, we know that for those 4 in 5, they go scot-free. We don't understand precisely what differentiates the 1 in 5 from the 4 in 5, but we know that only 1 in 5 people develop kidney disease. In the United States, that's about 6 million people. In West Africa, that's upward of, I don't know, in the tribe I came from, about 1/3. And I think Dr. Adeni Kinji also is from the same tribe. The Yoruba tribe in Nigeria, about 30%, 1/3 of Yoruba tribe have 2 copies. The Igbo tribe, almost 50% of Igbo tribes have this. And these are the ancestral origin of many African Americans. The same is true in Ghana. So this risk is even more common in West Africa, and that's how we know for sure that that's how it came here.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Olabisi. Jordan, did you have something you want to ask?
Yeah, I had a question. So, sorry, I was trying to follow along. So I have the G2 and G1, and Joshua has G1, G1, and he's a bit more advanced than I. And I'm pretty sure you just addressed this and said that G1 and G1 matchup, it has a higher likelihood of going towards chronic kidney disease or having end-stage renal disease. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Versus if G1, G2, there's a lesser amount of people that lead to end-stage renal disease, or did I misunderstand? Or to actually get
And
kidney
just for
disease?
clarity, Joshua is Jordan's brother.
Right, Josh is my brother.
Yes. So I wrote just in the chat now. So there are 6 possible genotypes. But I wrote here the 3 genotypes that are associated with kidney disease. G1, G1, G2, G2, G1, G2. So indeed, both your genotype and Joshua's are in the same, exactly the same bucket.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know. I was wondering that. So
Yeah.
thank you.
For
And we have
now,
another go ahead, Dr. Olabisi, sorry.
go ahead, Montrez, please.
No, we have another question from YouTube. What is the prevalence of APOL1 in Tiwi and Aboriginal Australians? They also have a high rate of kidney disease. Are you familiar at all, Dr. Olabisi?
I don't know the Tiwi tribe or Tiwi group, but
Mm-hmm.
if my understanding is clear, so the Aboriginals in Australia, their
Mm-hmm.
ancestry is actually because they are not, so everybody, let's clarify, everybody at some point, genetics tells us that hundreds of thousands of years ago, we all came from Africa. Now, but then there's migration out of Africa to all kind of part of the world. People that migrated earlier, including people that are in Aboriginals and all that, they do not have this APOL1 gene that I'm talking about. So I do not expect that people in Australia will have this at all.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're a Black person that migrated from United Kingdom in 20 years ago to Australia, that doesn't count. Yeah. So it's the ancestry from West Africa in the last 400 years. So if your ancestors were in Africa in the last, 400 years, either they are there now or they left there or they were taken from there. Those are the people that actually are affected, not the Australians, not the people in the Far East, not the people in the Middle East, and wherever we've seen this gene, this variant, it's because people actually you can trace the ancestry to West Africa recently.
Thank you so much. I also wanted to, in the chat, we corrected the link for kidneycareandjustice.com, as well as I also have sent our NephCure's website, which also has much information on rare kidney disease in general, as well as APOL1. Also, we have posted in here too, how to qualify for genetic testing. We have a link there, the APOL1program.com. And before this conversation is over, which it's not, I will also put my contact information in there as well. So if you have any questions following this conversation, you can always reach out to me directly and I'll be sure to connect you to the proper channels. Thank you so much, Dr. Olabisi, first and foremost.
Montrez, I see a question that I should
What's the question?
respond to. That's a very good question from Ms. Camilla Martin Proctor.
Yes.
It says, can we please speak to the intersection of genetic testing and life insurance? This is a very good question. And I thank you for asking this question. So uh, I think it's Gina. Gina is part of the healthcare that says you cannot discriminate against someone in terms of health insurance based on their pre-existing condition. But that does not cover life insurance. So let me clarify. So as we are talking about this variant, APOL1, now, even though I mentioned that only 1 in 5 people that have the genotype I mentioned have kidney disease, if you want to get life insurance, they may ask you, do you know whether you have any gene that increases your risk of kidney disease? And you cannot lie, right? So I would say if you're pursuing life insurance, I would say go for the life insurance test first because your knowledge of APOL1, I suspect may increase your life insurance. So my view is it will not affect your health insurance, but it does not, we currently don't have policy in our law. And I know I've discussed this with folks in NephCure before.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully with time that there will probably be a change in the law that will not penalize people where your life insurance premium will go up. Hopefully that would not be the case. So what's the practical admonition here? If you are pursuing life insurance, I would say do that first. And then
You sound like
go
a
to your,
social worker, Dr. Olabisi. That's good advice.
just keeping it real.
That's really smart. No, thank you for the question as well. That question was amazing. We definitely needed to discuss that. I've not had that question before, so we're very grateful you asked it.
We thank Camilla Martin for that question.
Thank you, Camilla Martin. Okay, also before we move forward, I want to first acknowledge our community partners who have been amazing in assisting us spread the word. They've allowed us in their houses of faith as well as in their facilities really spread awareness about APOL1, but most importantly also health equity. So if I say your name incorrectly here, Dr. Abby, you already felt victim of this. So you can probably start a support group following this. If I say your name incorrectly, please know it does not in any way reflect our love for you or NephCure's commitment to you all. So starting out in Washington, D.C., we really want to do a special shout out to Howard University, Dr. Donna Grant Mills, 19th Street Baptist Church, Janice Jefferson, who I see in the chat, as well as nephrologist Dr. Constance Meir, Atlanta, Ebenezer Baptist Church, Valencia Fleming, Emory School of Medicine, nephrologist and KDSAP chair, Dr. Jason Cobb, nephrology volunteer, our very own Jordan Albright, and Josh and Jamie, and Morehouse School of Medicine, Dr. Sandra Harris Hooker and Dr. Priscilla Pimu, New Life Church and Community Center, Michael Bryant, Faith Danzy, Brandy Whitney, and Emory KDSAP students. In Philadelphia, our very own board member, very new addition, but amazing partner, Dr. Reverend Leroy Miles. I think Reverend Miles would like to speak a little bit and say a little something. I'll put him on the spot. Let me go ahead and allow.
All
Reverend
right.
Miles,
I am here.
welcome.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good to hear you.
Certainly appreciated the information. As always, Dr. Olavisi does a great job of explaining it. And finally, I've always wondered African sleeping sickness. I did not know what it was. I could defend this entire concept and construct, but I could not specifically speak to that issue. But just so excited to be here with you all. And I did see in the chat someone ask a question about houses of faith or engagement, and I would just say, please have the conversation with your leadership. Trust is a significant issue as we talk about this, and there's no more trusted vehicle than houses of faith. And once we get the leaders on board, the rest will follow. So I am, as you mentioned, Montrez, and one of the newer members of the board. But when I was introduced to NephCure a few years ago, just super excited because the conversation for me resonated with going upstream, with testing, with screening and information. And so we have a goal to address kidney disease in our congregation. So this information is super helpful, absolutely. And if I can answer any questions or make myself available, we're certainly willing to do so. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Miles. And thank you so much for Enon's continued involvement as well as commitment to spreading awareness and spreading the word about not only kidney disease, but health equity in general. We're so lucky to have you as a board member and so happy to have our Enon family join as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Always a pleasure. And we'll see each other again over time, but specifically in November for our women's event.
We will. Bring good weather now.
We'll do the best we can, sir.
Thank you much. Okay, and also we want to recognize Joshua Albright for his involvement with Enon as well, especially recently with the Men's Health Day. Nephrologist and NephCure board member who's also new to our board, but not new to NephCure at all, Dr. Barbara Gillespie. And of course, our own Dr. Olabisi, Care and Justice Study team from Duke University, also led by Dr. Nadine Barrett, as well as Dr. Nika Lucas, Maurice Smith, Kanisha Bethia, and LaShawn Matthews, as well as our friends in Tallahassee who have helped us a great deal, especially recently, Bethel Baptist Church, Dr. Holmes, FAMU, Dr. Claudette Harrell, and nephrologist Dr. Daryl Crenshaw. In Houston, Fountain of Praise Church, Pastor Wright, George Anderson, Nguyen, as well as the Health and Wellness Ministry. Nephrologist, Dr. Sridhar Madam, and Dr. Raghavan, and Dr. Workanen. Gulf Coast Anna volunteers led by nurse Susan Chaco, and in Chicago, St. Sabina Catholic Church, Dr. Kimberly Limore, NephCure volunteers Fallon Bell and Talia Bradford, and NephCure board member, our very own Kevin Mott. With special thanks to Arcana Laboratories, Natera, and the sponsor of our April 1 Awareness Day efforts, Vertex Pharmaceuticals. So hello, and thank you all so much for your commitment, as well as your help with NephCure in spreading awareness, not only health equity, but also in particular, April 1 awareness. We're so grateful and so lucky to have you all. Thank you so much for everything you do. Now, moving forward, I get to grill one of my favorite people, that's Jordan Albright. We've done this so many times, Jordan. I feel like you're very much so used to my questions, but I'm so excited that you get to join this and speak about your experience with APOL1. I'll first start out by introducing you, of course. In 2022, at the age of 24, Jordan Albright was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease. It was later confirmed by renal biopsy to be APOL1 FSGS. Before this, he had shown no signs of this illness throughout his life and had no reason to presume that anything may be going on. That was until his younger brother, Joshua Albright, was at their aunt's house who had just donated a kidney. He decided to fool around with her blood pressure machine, and from that day forward, their lives changed. After Jordan's brother was diagnosed, it took months for them to begin to navigate this new normal. A huge part of this was played by their mother, Jamie Albright, amazing Jamie Albright, who found organizations such as NephCure, whose sole purpose was to bring communities of patients and their families together, as well as to spread information on all the things that they knew nothing about. For months, Jordan and his family would attend events and support Joshua in sharing his story and focusing on managing his health, with no idea that he too had the same disease. Jordan is now doing extremely well and has decided to take a more active role in advocating for his own health and the health of others who do not have the same support system that he says his family is lucky to have. He recently accepted a volunteer role as community leader of Atlanta with NephCure, and he's killing it. You're doing great. In addition to his profession at commercial real estate associate at Rise Property Group. He intends to utilize his professional network to help NephCure continue making an impact throughout the city of Atlanta by raising awareness on the topic of rare disease and raising funds to find a cure. Also, before we start, we have a comment in there, Haskell. I'm interested in no-cost genetic testing. I have CKD, my numbers are 19. I was told that it's caused by my hypertension. Please advise what I need to do to get some clinical trials and testing. Here's my information. Haskell Jackson, I'll be for sure to reach out to you. I just copied your email, and I'll be sure to shoot you an email this evening. So please look out for it. Thank you so much for reaching out. And Jordan, now to our questions. Would you like to say something before we start?
Yeah, well, again, thank you all so much for having me again. I do feel like at this point we've been so many together, so it's always nice to be invited. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here and see a lot of people that I love to hear from. So thank you all so much.
Thank you so much for joining and being brave enough to share your journey. It's very important. It's right up there to me, even more important than say any other testimony, because you have firsthand experience with this, and it's something you're navigating as a young professional whose daily life has been affected by this disease. So my first question to you is, how did you feel when you first learned about your APOL1 gene diagnosis and its association with kidney disease?
It was definitely very overwhelming. I will say not quite as much as when we first learned about my brother, just because it was so brand new. And at least at this point, we had some sort of an understanding. But it was definitely a scary situation. And as far as getting a better understanding of its association with kidney disease and the higher likelihood of reaching end-stage renal disease was, again, another scary factor. But it was also sort of empowering, just at least having that knowledge, understanding how I got to move forward, and kind of leading me being toward a bit more proactive. So definitely some mixed emotions involved there.
I'm sure. And thank you so much for advocating so much now. I mean, your journey is very inspiring. From that to now, you are on so many panels for us and you spread so much awareness for us. So we're so grateful to have you.
Thank you. I'm grateful for you all as well. So I appreciate it.
Jordan, also, what are your thoughts on the importance of genetic screenings, particularly for Black individuals, given the increased risk associated with the APOL1 gene variant?
So genetic testing played a very large role in my life.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that helped to kind of lay a blueprint for my understanding for myself and my family moving forward. So I think it's very important, but I'm also understanding of how it's a very large thing to ask of somebody, or to consider when it's not something that was initially on your radar. Um, so I think it's something that we got to, kind of work on as far as getting that perception changed a bit, and helping people to be a bit more open to it because, we're firsthand, evidence of being so important. Understanding that we had that gene mutation helped us to understand so much more, as to what it is we're living with. So it's just can't express really how important it is, but also getting those initial markers as far as checking blood pressure, getting urine analysis, talking to your primary care physician about seeing those potential biomarkers that could show for kidney disease, potentially being aware and being something you're living with. So I think it's very important.
Thank you. And thank you also for acknowledging how it is sometimes a big ask. I think some of us on the other side of that, they're doing advocacy or in healthcare, we're like, take the test or da-da-da. And it's like, it is a big ask because it can be scary. It is intimidating. And sometimes I think people may be afraid of what's there. So I definitely want to bring and highlight that, acknowledge and validate the fear that is associated sometimes, especially within the Black community. So thank you for highlighting it.
No, of course, very important.
How do you think the knowledge of your APOL1 gene status has influenced your perception of kidney disease and its management?
It's tough because for me, I learned about them at the same exact time. I didn't know that much about kidney disease in the first place. I certainly did not know anything about gene mutations.
Mm-hmm.
So it was all kind of being learned all in the same time. So I think having that context provided better grounds to kind of try to learn a bit more at least. I know a lot of things are still speculative. We're still learning a lot. But I do think for me personally, it helped my perception as far as kidney disease just because I understand that my circumstances were a bit different and everyone's story is a lot different. And it kind of helped me to at least understand that, like, it wasn't something entirely I could have done much about, it was just something that was within my own DNA. And, and in some form of fashion, again, it was sort of empowering, to at least have some sort of reason, even if we don't know exactly why that gene mutated. So I think it definitely influences my thought process as far as how differing all of our stories are and how it all pans out differently for each person in particular. So
thank you. This is a big one. In your opinion, what more can be done to raise awareness and address disparities in screening and management of kidney disease, particularly among Black populations with the APOL1 gene variant? That's like an ACT question, isn't it?
That is a big one.
I have faith in you.
I think just more community outreach. And I think what you guys do so well is connecting with patients and empowering them to speak more about their own stories and what led them to where they are now. And I've been like myself and my brother, we only have so many options. And my mom found NephCure, just searching through social media and met Kelly Helm on one of these lines. And it opened up a door to everything else that provided us so many opportunities, and knowledge that just helped us so much more to have a little bit more comfort as we move forward. So I think that a big importance is kind of just leaning more into honestly what you guys do as an organization is just speaking with patients, understanding what it is they're going through, seeing how we can help them, and just letting people see that through other patients who, unfortunately, a lot of people just had even less opportunities than myself and my brother and my family. So, seeing that growth, seeing what people have gone through, and just kind of seeing that community approach as far as what real people are going through and how it can happen to anybody. So I think following a lot of y'all's tune would be great. Would open up people's mind a bit.
Well, we couldn't do it without you all. I definitely think that the patient perspective is the expert perspective. I mean, it affects you more than anyone else. So hearing you all and you all being so willing to share with us your journey really empowers and activates other patients within the community. So without you all, we could not be here. So thank you so much for that. Also, how do you think healthcare providers can better support or engage with Black patients who have been diagnosed with the APOL1 gene variant, considering the historical and systematic factors influencing healthcare access and outcomes?
It's also another big one. You know, I think just maybe if someone doesn't even think that they may have something going on, like if you have some of that background as far as West African descent, and that can be pinpointed in some capacity. My mom mentioned recently that, you know, when you're pregnant and you're having children, you go through all sorts of screening and whatnot. And if she had the opportunity to be tested
Sure.
for some of these things, because we did have some pre-existing things as far as some of our family, she would have been very open to that. And, you know, and again, as a man, why would I have to think about certain, like, I don't know much about all the screening that has to happen per se myself. So like, when you said that, it kind of further helped me myself to understand, you know, another avenue that can help people out as well. Sorry to be ranting a bit, but I think with healthcare providers, I think asking those questions, you know, being kind of on the forefront of just trying to insist on certain things of urinalysis and, you know, checking into protein spillage and whatnot within people of Western African descent can go a very long way. And just having those pre-conversations rather than, you know, waiting until we see something major or it never coming up until they're there with insane disease. So I think that open dialogue and having people like Dr. Olabisi here and being at y'all's events, because being able to talk to these people that really actually understand these things and know the nuances behind it, but also see patients on the forefront and understand what they are going through, like there's a more personal effect to it. So I think people showing face and showing like interest in these more rare specific things is very important, because, you know, there was just as many doctors myself that like didn't know much about APOL1, you know, mutation and whatnot as far as kidney disease and its direct correlation. So I think engagement is very important.
Thank you so much, Jordan. We're always lucky to have you. Thank you so much for speaking about that, even though I kind of hit you, like I said, with some ACT questions, because I definitely and we want to hear your perspective. So thank you so much. If anyone wants to be in contact with Jordan and has any questions, feel free to also reach out to me as well. My name as well as my email are in the chat, and I'll also put it in at the end again as well. So thank you much, Jordan Albright.
Of course, thank you all.
Next up, a word from our amazing sponsors at Vertex, Dr. Abby. I did that right, huh?
Yeah, you did.
Look at me. It only took an hour. I want to first, of course, introduce you. Dr. Abby completed her undergraduate studies at Princeton University before earning her medical degree at Emory University. Shout out to Emory University. She went on to complete residency at orthopedic surgery at NYU in New York City, followed by a hand surgery fellowship at Mayo Clinic in Rochester. Currently, she holds the position of physician investigator at Vertex Pharmaceuticals, leveraging her expertise to advance scientific innovation and create transformative medicines. We are so happy to have Dr. Abby.
Thank you, Montrez. It is my very great honor to speak to you all tonight on behalf of Vertex Pharmaceuticals on the first annual AMKD Awareness Day. I'd first like to thank NephCure for organizing tonight's event and for having me here to participate, share, and learn with you. I would also like to thank everyone tonight who has shared a personal story or connection with AMKD, especially you, Jordan. Your experiences are powerful, and we can never thank you enough for being a part of this movement. It's because of you all that we go to work every day, inspired to do more and to do better. So I have 3 main messages I want to briefly share with you guys tonight. First, this is an extraordinary time in our understanding of AMKD. Second, Vertex aims to create transformative medicines for serious diseases, including APOL1-mediated kidney disease. And third, NephCure is doing remarkable work. So for my first message, like I said, it's an exciting time in nephrology because, as you've heard tonight, we now know that sometimes kidney disease in individuals of African descent can be caused by changes in our genes. Armed with this knowledge, we can take action. Part of today's awareness campaign is about understanding our own family health history. Because the underlying cause of AMKD is genetic, knowing your risk for developing kidney disease becomes an important piece of personal health management. AMKD progresses rapidly and often silently. Too often, people don't feel sick until the disease is very advanced. So it's important to detect the disease earlier and take steps to manage it. As you've heard tonight, it's really crucial to prioritize scheduling regular checkups with your doctor to make sure you're getting any recommended screenings or preventative care. If you don't currently have a diagnosis of kidney disease, regular visits are a great time to talk to your doctor about any risk factors you may have, such as your family history, and whether screening for chronic kidney disease is right for you. If you discover you have kidney disease and you may be at risk for AMKD, talk with your doctor about whether genetic testing is appropriate and how to get access. Now for my second message, a word about Vertex. You may know Vertex from our work in sickle cell disease or cystic fibrosis. Or maybe you've never heard of Vertex at all. Whether you know a lot or little, I want you guys to know this. Our mission is to invest in scientific research with the aim of creating transformative medicines for serious diseases, and that includes kidney disease. Our CEO is a nephrologist, and we have an investigational drug in a phase 3 study for the treatment of APOL1-mediated kidney disease. As a physician, I've witnessed firsthand the unimaginable toll that kidney disease can have on patients and their loved ones. Not only have I seen this burden of the disease, I've also listened to these patients express their hopes and dreams of being free of it. There's still a lot of work to be done, but we're excited and we're hopeful that we may be able to make an impact on the lives of people living with serious diseases, including those with AMKD. This is a passion shared by every employee at Vertex. And I'm going to close with my third and final message, which is one I hope you all know well. NephCure is doing extraordinary work. There's so many exciting things happening to educate people about AMKD, to get people screened, and to get people in care. And none of that would be successful without the tireless work of Josh, Lauren, and the entire NephCure team. So thanks again for joining, and thanks for listening.
Dr. Abby, thank you so much. That was incredible. Thank you so much. And thank you, Vertex, for not only sponsoring us, but also with your tireless efforts in committing to making such a difference in the RKD world, as well as the work you do in general. Vertex is an amazing partner of ours, and we're so lucky to have people like Dr. Abby, Courtney, and all others at Vertex that have partnered with us in such a great way. I also want to once again shout out all of our community partners. This is a joint effort. It is not easy. So no one can just do it on their own. NephCure has partnered with not only Enon, but so many other great organizations that I listed earlier, and we're so lucky to have you all. As well as I want to reiterate NephCure's mission, which is committed to empowering and activating rare kidney disease patients, as well as continuous efforts to promote health equity, as well as bring more wellness to APOL1. Thank you all so much. We are grateful to have had you tonight. And also, I'll thank you, Donna Grant Mills. Please feel free also, if you have any questions, anything you need, every question brings about a new resource. So please feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my name and email again, whether that be something health equity based, APOL1, any questions. We have a connection with not only genetic testing, but we have a robust group of NephCure specialists that work amazing at helping our RKD patients and the community in general. We are committed, we are locked in, and we care. So please feel free to reach out at any time. Thank you all for joining, from Dr. Olabisi with Care and Justice to Brian with Solidity. Brian, I hope I said that right. Did I?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Jordan. As well as our NephCure family and all of our robust staff that works hard every day at continuing the talk and continue. Thank you. Thank you so much, Brian. It's our pleasure to have you, and thank you for casting us tonight. You can find the recording for this video if any of you joined late, or if any of you all have any partners that you like to show this to. It'll be on our NephCure YouTube fairly soon. So please feel free to reach out to if you want the recording of this video as well. Thank you all, and to all a good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Dr. Abby. Thank you, Dr. Olabisi.
Thank you. Great job, Montrez.
Thank you, Dr. Olabisi.
Great job, Montrez.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Montrez.
All right. Thank you all.